Hi, Annie here. Thank you for joining. So, I would like to give a brief introduction to an upcoming offering, which is Contemplating Sex and Psychedelics. My colleague and I, Lorena, will be starting off this offering in February, and I will give the details. Yeah, details are below if you're interested. Um, so, this is a group that is for professionals, professional healthcare providers. This includes medical, alternative medical, mental health counselors, ceremonialists, whatever under above ground you're coming from around the topics of sexuality and psychedelics. If you are a provider who is seeing clients currently, this may be an appropriate space for you. So, both Lorena and I have a background in sexual positivity, formal training through the Somatica Institute, which is trauma informed, as well as explicit trauma training through somatic experiencing. And both have been practicing for years at the intersection of sexuality and trauma healing. So, Lorena and I met in the Somatica training years ago, which I am very grateful for. And this is going to be an online peer supervision group. When you sign up, there will be a really brief questionnaire just to make sure you are in practice. Just we want to know, that everybody who is showing up is a healthcare provider to some capacity, so that we can keep the space professional. So we are offering this because since both of us have gone through, I'm currently in 12-month program, Psychedelics Today, and Lorena went through a different program, professional psychedelics trainings, and have a background in our own personal experience that we both and many of my other colleagues have seen such a need for just more conversation around the intersection of sexual health, healing, education, and psychedelics. I'll give an example right now. I could give many examples. But basically, we come from a somatics perspective, which can include, if we're not orienting around the body, embodiment in one way, shape, or form, with our own selves, like with our clients' own selves, then it's going to be that more difficult to heal. Generally, and as more and more people understand how trauma works, we can't have a disembodied or more purely intellectualized processing. While it can help some people for some things, it doesn't work for most people with most things, especially when it comes to sexual health, and our physical health, because it's happening in the body. So we need to be in the body. So I've been doing a lot of research for years now on all these trainings popping up to become a psychedelic facilitator. Just kind of observing from the sidelines as somebody who does have a lot of personal experience and in ceremonies, recreation, a variety of environments, and I find it very concerning that in these trainings that they're not somatically based. Sometimes some of them are, and that when and if a transgression has happened, such as with the MAPS folks in 2019, that it's not raising more concern in the community. when a practitioner is not trained somatically or not trained to have awareness and ongoing processing around their relationship with their own bodies and their own imprint from society around sexuality, then that may come out in one way, shape, or form with their clients. So if in the protocol for these trainings, it'll state no sexual contact. Obviously, hopefully it's obvious. And no contact in general, no physical touch unless consent, and then consent's talked about before. So if a person is coming to a psychedelic therapy space and they have any amount, which could be, more ambiguous because of our culture trauma around sexuality. We live in a culture that still is endued with shame around sexuality, or if they have an acute experience where their bodies were harmed, or whether they were a perpetrator or a victim in the situation, that's a trauma. So if somebody has that experience that's still yet to be processed in their body, then that person might have an unclear relationship with their own physical boundaries. That's one way trauma can show up, is that they don't have, the capacity to, necessarily relate to their own embodied boundaries in a clear way. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be going to the therapy, if it's related to their body or sexuality, which is a lot of people. So considering that, how can a person actually consent if they're not aware of their own boundaries in an embodied way? And then you add the power dynamic of a practitioner, and then you add a boundary dissolving experience, such as psychedelics. To me, this is just a recipe for, harm happening again, which happens, unfortunately, often in psychedelic spaces, just as it happens in non-psychedelic spaces. I mean, it's not something to be brushed off just because, oh, it happens all the time. It's not that psychedelics are causing this, and they're not causing it. It's just that if a person is going into a space where they're deeming themselves, they've labeled themselves some sort of therapist, sitter, guide, whatever the word is, and they have not had this level of training, awareness for their own bodies and processes in relationship to these more sensitive areas that also relate to every person. Even if you're asexual, it relates to everybody. Then this is quite concerning for me. And so this is why Lorena and I, one of the many reasons why we're hosting this professional supervision group on the topics of sexuality and psychedelics. So I just gave that as an example, kind of an extreme example of like why this is important if you are a healthcare practitioner, and whether you're having clients come to you and they're starting to experiment with substances, or you're working more directly with substances. I think this could be applicable for anyone. If you are not a healthcare provider, but you go to somebody, whether it's your doctor, whether that's your therapist or massage therapist, in any way that you're processing verbally or somatically, and you would like your practitioner to have more awareness on these topics, you can send this information to them to refer them. We will probably start off having these sessions about once a month. We are going to limit spaces so that we can keep the integrity of the group high and really allow space for everybody. So it's probably going to be limited to 10 to 12 people. And yeah, come with your questions, come with case consultations. This will be a confidential professionals group, and we will also start off with each session. We will have a little presentation and share as well, so that you're guaranteed like coming out of this session with something useful and or more information, or at least another little seed of a spark around these topics. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thank you for considering this space for you or someone you know in the field. And yeah, I wish you a lot of safety and joy and some pleasure and just or just space for whatever's coming up for you, including any grief or challenges. I hope that you're getting a lot of support in whatever you're working with today. And please like, share, and subscribe if you are resonating with this material. You can sign up for my newsletter if you want more updates on my offering. So I will have more groups coming out, and including an in-person psychedelic integration group in Santa Cruz starting January 23rd with my colleague Craig, who's a licensed therapist. So yeah, just email me if you're interested in either of those, and I'll put the links down below. So thanks so much, and carry on, and much love.